So, why did the chicken cross the road? We all know the joke. We all understand that it's not meant to be taken literally. But in this age of literal-mindedness, there are some who doubtless have some further questions. When they hear this joke, they will want to know about the health and safety of the chicken, whether or not it was free range, whether before approaching the road there had been a risk assessment, or how the chicken felt about the experience. Is the joke degrading to chickens, situating them as it does in a potentially dangerous situation? Does the joke possibly incite violence against chickens? Has the chicken consented to be the subject of this joke? Is it speciesist? Ought there to be a consultation period in which chickens and their allies offer their views on the potential impact of the joke that it might have among the avian community? Well, this kind of literal-mindedness is now par for the course among online social justice activists. Not known for being the most fun-loving of people, they've been outraged this week by a show that no doubt most of them haven't actually watched. This is Ricky Gervais's new stand-up comedy special, Supernature, which was launched on Netflix this week. And although there were jokes about the Holocaust, paedophilia, disabled toddlers and dead babies, none of these caused a stir. There was even an extended riff on God and religion, but we haven't heard much outrage about that either. No, it was the jokes about gender identity which caused the most anger. And why? Because just as decades ago a comedy routine about God would have seen comedians in the dock, now it's challenges to the new religion of gender identity that are considered a form of heresy. Because you see, the high priests of this new religion, which many call the woke movement, have a very clear set of rules about comedy. This is based on the idea of punching up and punching down. Punching up is good because a comedian should be aiming at those in power. Punching down is bad because it is a form of bullying. And yet this can get quite confusing. These same activists would say that the cartoonists who were murdered at the offices of the French magazine Charlie Hebdo in 2015 were punching down in their satire. Some even implied that they got what they deserved. But they were mocking God. You can't punch much higher than that. Comedy and satire are always open to interpretation, where some see punching down, others see punching up. Here's what Gervais had to say about the targets of his new special. My target wasn't trans folk, but trans activist ideology. I've always confronted dogma that oppresses people and limits freedom of expression. So there you have it. Of course, activists always claim to have some kind of magical insight into the brains of their opponents, so they will say he's lying. But their amateur telepathy is best ignored. The point is that Gervais is not punching down. Gender ideologues now have unprecedented cultural and political clout. They dominate all of our major cultural, educational and artistic institutions. They are able to help form the policies of the NHS, the BBC, the police, the National Education Union. They enjoy the support of most major corporations, Silicon Valley tech giants, academia, Hollywood, the US government and the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And this is meant to be punching down? You can only really reach this conclusion if you're determined to misinterpret Gervais's comedy. Here's what the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation had to say. We watched the Ricky Gervais comedy special on Netflix, so you don't have to. It's full of dangerous, graphic, anti-trans rants masquerading as jokes. He also spouts anti-gay rhetoric and spreads inaccurate information about HIV. Let's be blunt, this is utter nonsense. Even if you're offended by the joke, it takes a huge leap of the imagination to suppose that Gervais has made the strange choice to incite hatred towards trans people through the medium of stand-up comedy. And this idea that he is spreading disinformation about HIV is the most absurd of all. They've accused him of being anti-gay for writing material that mocks the kind of homophobic bigots who believe that God created AIDS to punish gay people. And it should tell us something, that these activists have interpreted a joke that ridicules homophobes as being itself homophobic. When it comes to comedy, they simply don't know what they're talking about. And that's fine. We've all got our blind spots. I don't understand football. But I'm not taking to Twitter to pontificate about the Premier League and how, in spite of Man City's lack of a dedicated centre-forward, they did have the advantage of strong midfielders and an interchangeable forward line. I don't know what any of that means. My point is that if it's comedy criticism you're after, woke activists are the last people you should ask. Not only have they taken Gervais's jokes at face value, they have said that the jokes classify as criminal. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation have said that Gervais's material violates Netflix's policy against hate speech, and then ominously says that Netflix will, quote, be held to account. So this is where we get into dodgy territory. It's perfectly acceptable for people to be offended angry, upset by jokes that they don't like. This has always been the case, and it will never change. That's because comedy cannot exist without the potential for causing offence. And some of the best comedy veers into contentious territory. Just as the fool in King Lear says the things that everyone else in the court is too scared to say, comedians traditionally have been the ones to point and laugh when the emperor has no clothes. And look what we've seen from those in power recently. Politicians, media commentators, academics, so many of them claiming that the word woman cannot be defined. They know this isn't true, and they know that we know it isn't true. So if a comedian can't point out the absurdities at the heart of gender identity ideology, who can? So yes, people are free to misinterpret jokes, be offended by jokes, express outrage. I'm all for that. I love a bit of drama. But when we start hearing that there are people in power who are looking into the possibility of criminalising jokes, we have a major problem. So this is from today's Mail on Sunday. Now, according to this article, the Home Office is drawing up a new strategy to encourage the reporting of non-crime hate incidents if people are offended by the kind of jokes that Ricky Gervais tells. And although non-crime hate incidents don't lead to prosecution, this article reveals that the strategy could end up urging the criminalisation of certain jokes. This is very strange, because in December, the Court of Appeal ruled that the recording of non-crime hate incidents by police is unlawful. And yet here we have the Home Office ignoring this decision, just as the College of Policing appeared to have ignored this decision. And this could be because the civil service, the machinery of government, is captured by this ideology. This is a known problem, but as yet the government hasn't done anything about it. Priti Patel even instructed the College of Policing in April 2021 to stop recording non-crime. They haven't stopped. Does she have any power at all? Then there's the SNP, which has already introduced its draconian new hate speech bill, which even has a section on the public performance of a play, which means that they are trying to police artistic choices. And when I've raised these concerns in the past, I've been accused of catastrophising. When YouTuber Count Dankula made his Nazi pug video in 2016, in which he taught his girlfriend's pug dog to Sieg Heil, this resulted in a 2-year trial and the waste of thousands of pounds of taxpayers' money. When I wrote articles defending Count Dankula at the time, people said to me, well, it's just the police overreaching. It won't go to court. Then it went to court. Then I was told, oh, well, there's no way he'll be found guilty for a joke. Then he was found guilty for a joke. Now he has a criminal record. And when I tried to say that this should ring a few alarm bells, I was told by many people that Count Dankula wasn't a professional comedian. And there's no way that the police would launch an investigation into jokes told by actual stand-up comics. But then the police did precisely that, investigating Jo Brand for a joke she told on the BBC show Heresy. Now, you would have thought that the title of that show would have given some kind of context. And when I wrote an article saying that the cops had no business investigating Jo Brand, I was told that, well, they'll never try to change the law to ban jokes. But then Jimmy Carr caused outrage with his joke about the Holocaust in February of this year. And the Culture Secretary, Nadine Dorries, claimed that what Carr was doing was not comedy and that new laws could be put into place via the media bill to criminalise jokes of this kind. So, am I guilty of the slippery slope fallacy? Well, it would seem that my fears just keep being realised. So excuse me if I'm a little concerned to hear powerful activist groups and politicians calling for censorship and the prosecution of comedians. Is Ricky Gervais punching up or punching down? Actually, who cares? His artistic choices are his own. If you keep trying to apply rules to comedy, you're going to be disappointed because comedians are inveterate rule breakers. I've said it many times, but it bears repeating. The state has no business investigating anyone for the words they choose to say and the jokes they choose to tell. When it comes to comedy, I support anyone's right to complain, protest, scream and shout online and tell everyone how much they disapprove of jokes about the subjects closest to their hearts. That's part of free speech too. But once people start talking about legal consequences for jokes, that's dangerous. If we allow the state the power to set the acceptable limits of humour of all things, there can be no guarantees for any of our freedoms. And there's nothing funny about that.